Hello and welcome. Today we're picking up not where we left off last time in Song of the Six because the city was on fire, but rather we're starting off a new city. So we're going to go into play here. We're going to do a random game, normal difficulty. This time we'll have a couple titles to start up with, so it'll be a little bit different than it was last time. We're also going to be picking a different race. Last time we were these guys, the Amivians. Today we're going to be doing the Dondorians. So we're swapping from a medium initial challenge where they want to be near fresh water, disliking other species, bad farmers, that sort of stuff. Instead we're popping over to a group that is a harder difficulty start, but they're good craftsmen, good miners, hardy in combat, notably, however, somewhat difficult to please, and not particularly good at making food. Want to live in the mountains, sort of thing. They also don't have reproduction like the other species do, so we'll have to take everyone in via migration. As it says, the Dondorians aren't born, but created by the gods themselves. Section name the glide. We will just name ourselves after the channel. But yeah, we'll roll with the default name there, the RNG name. Since titles have been added, I've only played with the Amivians, so we've got a couple unlocked from the previous run. And I have to decide which ones we want to pick up. We can spend up to 5 of these. I think we're going to take first their names, so we start with some innovation. That'll help us get started, potentially making use of some of the resources around the map. We can use that to basically unlock a mine or a pasture or something right at the beginning. Our guys do focus quite a bit on sort of carpentry sort of stuff, refining the raw goods, let's say. So let's actually double down on that with artisans. I'm going to do law. I'm going to pass up on Lifebringer. I'm to do merciful for the loyalty bonus. Yeah, let's do happiness and merciful for the loyalty bonus. And then let's hop to it. So, random map. If we wanted to recreate the map from last time, I could technically have looked up the seed from the beginning of last run where we used the seed. I'm not going to worry about that. We're just going to generate, and hopefully not get a completely screwed up map. This would be an interesting map, but I think we're going to re-roll it. Because this big mountain range down the middle of the map here is probably going to be a block to like all transit across it, and that's probably going to be a problem. There we go. That one might be a little bit more usable. So we're looking, our guys specifically want a mountain. I'm looking probably for a mountain, or people also, the Dondorians specifically like cold. We're probably not going to be doing mono species. We're probably going to try to invite some other species into our city, but we're going to at least care about what our main people like, which is cold. They also like mountains. We want to find a place with mountains. And I kind of probably also want basically want river access, if we can get it. With sort of forest being a good third. So there, about 30% of the map is mountain. We've got a river to the north that we'd be able to take use of. There's a decent amount of forest. There's not very much open land, but I think I can work with not being very much open land. Twitchrat saying, starting a new game. How do you think the last game ended? Happy with it? Sorry, you did not see the end. Well, if you want to watch the end, the Twitch VOD should probably still be up from it, and it'll be uploaded on YouTube in the next couple days. The last game was very interesting. We got up into the 6,000s and a little bit past there. And then I made a few mistakes, and we ended up having a riot, and then a couple parts after that, another riot. And the second riot was sort of like, okay, we've had enough destroyed that I was worried about getting into a riot cycle where the riots were causing riots, which would result in the city sort of burning down. But yeah, so the game was going pretty well. We were pretty close to a stagnant point even before we hit riots. I'm going to try to take some of the stuff we learned from last time and apply it to doing better this time. But of course, we're playing a different race, so some of that might backfire because things may be a little different balance-wise. But yeah, we're going to go for a cold place. I think this will work out. The only thing I might imagine here with low open land is we might not have a lot of good farmland. Now, that's probably fine. Our people really don't want to farm anyway. We're probably going to be doing a bunch of pastures to start off here. And that'll make sense once we get into discussing our characters, our race here. So we'll pop into the city and see what the default generation is for the city. We might need to reroll a couple times. So first it's generating the sort of the world map. We'll actually take a look a little bit at the world map before we jump into the city. Figure out how many neighbors we have. Looks like we might have 3 neighbors if I'm reading the generation steps correctly here. Yeah, we got 3 neighbors. So we have Ronda, or the Jandara? Jandara to the west. To the south we have the Duchy of Plandon. And to the north we have Galicia. Galitsu. So yeah, if we want to go take over free territory, once again we're going to have to probably trespass, but that's probably fine. Or overrun one of these people. Would not be surprised if these guys end up being fairly weak early on and we maybe overrun them instead. Okay, so that looks like that'll work. Next step in, let's pop into the city and see what we rolled for the city. Again, we'll be able to reroll in this step if it looks like it's not a good city start. Okay, so as you can see, we got a river up north, which is what we were expecting. We've got quite a few minerals in the mountain over to the east. And yeah, lots of the forest here, or lots of the terrain appears to be foresty terrain. Not necessarily the best for farmland. I think this is mostly, if I'm guessing from what I can see on here, till, which isn't super unsurprising. The question is, do I want to start north of the river or south of the river? That gem mine on the island is a little weirdly placed. I think that's coal north of the river versus the ores down here. I might do a refresh because I want to see if we can get the coal and the ore to be near each other. We also vaguely want to be somewhat close to the river on our first setup. Our people like, the Dondorians like meat, fish, and mushrooms. And because of how mushrooms work, we're probably going to delay generating mushrooms. So we got gems and stone in the upper right there. Got stone in the top left there. We got a couple deposits of clay, so this is not a bad map for clay. The fancy ores are down here. Yeah, no, that's coal as well. Okay, so we don't... That kind of didn't meet my requirements. This is a little bit better. Not quite what I want. We'll go for another reroll. Okay, and you can kind of see, because on the world map kind of determined what the rough geography of the map would be. So what we're really re-rolling is where the main deposits are, right? So we're always going to have some sort of river here. So we got ore, gems, Sylvan. Again, we're still quite away from the coal. being close to the ore, which is not quite what we want. And this is pretty bad for the ore, or for the clay, which is kind of expected for this map. This map is below sort of average on the clay. Although actually that's not too bad at the clay there. I think we're still going to go for another quick refresh. Okay, so we've got ore on the riverbank this time. Gems on the island. Sylvan. Coal on both banks of the river there. Still pretty far away from the ore. Although that's maybe not too bad if we're expanding up and along the river. We've got ore on one side, we got coal on the other. We could ship the coal. Or we could do what we did last time, right? And the guys make trees into charcoal. That's what we wanted to do. I'm gonna say that this is what we want. Oh, the other thing we don't have is we don't have any good herdables at the river. I think we'll go for another reroll. A bit of a thicker river. We do have coal and ore fairly close together. They're on different islands, but that's probably fine. Coal and iron. The iron ore. More iron ore down there. Clay up on the islands over there. Gems. And we only got one stone mine here, although it does look like a pretty... Oh no, there's a second one there. Stone mines are pretty far apart, though. But simply the act of carving housing into the mountains is going to generate a lot of stone, so that's not too worrisome. I think we're going to start in here. I think this one will work for what I want. Yeah, we'll plop in, let's say, here. And we can go in and take a look at our race here. So we're going to be doing Dondorians. We go into, not properties, the question mark here. One of the sort of features of the Dondorians is, okay, they like meat, fish, and mushrooms, but another thing that's maybe not immediately apparent to those who haven't done it, haven't played it Song of Six, is they're actually probably one of the more open to having other people in their city. Right, so the Dondorians have a preference for allowing Kryptonians in, humans in. The Mevians we had last time. The Mevians don't really appreciate the Dondorians, but the Dondorians appreciate the Mevians. They also like the Cantor, which is one of the ancient sort of giant races. So this is a city where we can probably do some degree of multiculturalism, and have other species in here. We'll have to be a little bit careful to keep those other species apart because they don't necessarily like being near each other, right? So the Kryptonians, Kryptonians are also pretty open to having other people in. So you can see they've got a 75% appreciation for us. They don't really like the humans. We need to keep the humans and the Kryptonians apart. But the Kryptonians are better farmers than us, so we might bring some of them in to do farming. They like slightly different things, though, so we'll have to be a little bit careful of that, right? They like bread. We can bring humans in. Humans, again, pretty open to having people in. They don't mind the Kryptonians as much as the Kryptonians mind them. They don't mind the Dondorians, although the Dondorians actually appreciate them more than they appreciate the Dondorians. So we can definitely do some sort of combination here where we have multiple people in, multiple different races in here. And the Mevians don't necessarily appreciate other people, but the Mevians, if we're careful and keep their population fairly low, we can probably just say, shove up next to the river and say, hey, your guys' one and only job is fish. Right, they're really good fishermen. So we can sort of play to different races' strengths in here. Starting off here, fulfillment, which is how happy people are in the city. I think these are one of the harder ones to keep happy out of 150. Yeah, they're probably the hardest of the races to keep happy. Although, as a race, they're one of the few that can't have any native population. So they don't mind how much the city is native. They don't necessarily, as you can saw there, they didn't necessarily mind how much of the city was sort of foreign. By default, they have massage parlors ticked on. You'll notice here that massage parlors has no fulfillment, so we're actually going to just tick that off there. They're not interested in that. But they basically want a little bit of all the services. Some of the services are varying degrees. Environment, they do have a road preference. This is maybe not a good place to check their road preference. They're gonna like stone roads mostly, and I think they like stone. Yeah, they like sort of stone buildings, or living in the mountains. The proverbial sort of like dwarf-like civilization in this one. So we're gonna keep the dwarves to the mountains, dwarves to the mines, dwarves to the workshop, sort of thing. And we're going to play slightly differently than we did before. These guys care about squareness, so in the last one we weren't really caring about whether or not our buildings were square or round. These guys like living near square buildings. At some point we might have some Cretonians in here which actually prefer it to be round. But we can play around with that a little bit. And then pillars, statues, torches, all the sort of stuff. Religion, these guys, unlike the Mevians we were using last time, actually care about having access to crypts and graveyards. And then they do appreciate being indoctrinated, and so on and so forth. One other thing we can take a look at before we get to building. They are also, I believe, got certain jobs they're good at, certain jobs they like. So they're skilled at being potters, and they don't necessarily mind doing pottery, right? There's certain jobs they like they really like making paper, and they're really good at paper making and such and so forth, right? So one thing you can sort of notice a general trend in here, they like making things, exception of bows. They're bad farmers, we don't really want them to do farming, although obviously at the beginning we're going to need to do some pasture work anyway. And they're probably going to be the ones doing our pastures. But we're basically going to keep them away from making food because they're not very good at it. And this is one reason we might, for example, bring in the Mevians to do fishing, for example, because they're just better fishermen. Depending upon the type of mine they like mining, they like mining gems, like mining Zithlon. Otherwise, they're generally just good at it. And I think they have a higher than normal carrying capacity, so they are very good at working the warehouses, even though they don't find a lot of fulfillment in that task. They're very slow at educating as well, so while our people do live a long time, and obviously you have to migrate in the city, so we have to send them through university if we want them to learn how to be educated. Okay, so with that, I think enough talking for the moment. Let's get to planning out some of the city here. So the first thing we probably want to do is we probably want to source some food. Now, our people like fish and they like meat. I think we'll try to get a little bit of each sort of thing. Although in hindsight, I maybe didn't set up in a particularly great spot for fishing. Because up in this cold one, it's the sort of ice along here is actually the area where we can fish. Although if we go to the left of our starting area, that's not too bad. So we'll probably put some sort of road across to the island. So we've got a connection to the island. By default, obviously starting on dirt road. Our people don't particularly appreciate dirt roads. They're not particularly fond of brick. They do like highways, and I think they like paved and stuff like that. Right? So they like, yeah, highways paved, and then probably the highest one they're going to be is or plaza. Yeah, Sacred Path would be pretty decent for purely decorative reasons. But for the moment, we're just going to dirt up the road. Make a dirt road. So effectively using the dirt road here as a way to make a bridge. So that'll be sort of a bridge across over the island. We don't necessarily need to be on the island yet, so that'll be fine. And then we'll start planning out a fishery. And we'll line out some pastures. And once we get some resources in, we might also set up and do some hunting as well. Because we do have the first of our kind title, we do have extra people in here, so we're starting with 36. And we are starting with some innovation. We'll put the innovation actually to use here at the beginning in getting some pasture variety. And yeah, this is looking like the big fishing place, but it's pretty small. As you can see, we're only up to like 4 or 5 fishermen. Okay, so that's as far west as we can take it. We are going to need a storage. A little big for the storage, a little bigger than normal. And then I need enough auxiliaries so the building can work at full effectiveness. Actually the right size to go one step too big. Nope, that's the right size. Okay. So we've planned out this fishery. So we got a fishery, we got a bridge. We're going to want to do a pasture fairly early on. What's the soil around here looking like? So we do have some rich soil. In fact, the rich soil is about where I was thinking about building the city, which is maybe not the greatest result to find out for myself. I'll have to resist and try to build the city actually to the northeast then, instead of right where I was going to put it, because I was going to put it sort of here, which is like where all the good soil is. Although that makes it a bit easier to figure out where we're going to put the pasture. The pasture is just going to be right there. So we are going to start with a fairly early pasture, although let's go to the tech. Alright, so we pop to tech. We start off with 23 knowledge. We are going to invest 10 of that knowledge right away in, well, not 10, 5 into getting some onyxes. These are sort of woolly animals. They give us fiber and they give us meat, which will work well for our native environment here, which is cold. And then that's the pasture we're going to roll with for our initial livestock. I also believe, forgot to double check it, if you rewind the video, but you'd probably see it when you were selecting the location. I believe the onyxes get a productivity bonus here in this climate, whereas some of the other ones, like the globidine, which are like lizard things, would have been getting a productivity malus. So it makes sense to be doing the pastures here, because the pastures are getting bonused. In fact, I think you can see it here, right? So I think that's why that's in red while this is in blue. There we go. So we're going to make use of sort of the effectiveness of the pasture here. We're going to build mostly down near the river. And advantage of sort of this good land here. I'm gonna leave the space for sort of a large road coming through here. We're gonna do larger roads in this one than we did in the last one. Okay, 1.8 workers. I think we're gonna take this up to like 3, like we did the fishery. Okay, that should work. We're gonna put a gate over that side and a hut. There we go. So we're looking 200 something wood to build those. And we can get wood by just chopping this forest down. At some point we might want to put wood cutters there, so I don't want to build over the top of it, but using that for wood is not a bad idea. I could always put a water pump in as well and push the water down here to get more trees. Okay, so we sort of got our basics for the food there. Let's contemplate also building a hunter. We'll plan out a hunter and a warehouse. A hunter is going to require furniture. As you can see. So we either have to trade for the furniture or get furniture making going a little bit sooner. So we're not going to necessarily be too worried about bringing this online. No, that's not big enough. Let's make it a little wider. Let's clear you, put one there. Nope, that's not quite enough either. Okay, I'm gonna have to make it a little bit longer. I'm trying to get like 15 hunters in this hunter's place. And then enough utility. Again, we might not be rushing to get this built right away, because again, we don't have a source of furniture, although we could probably sort out trying to trade for furniture fairly early on. Nope, not enough. Just stretch the building one more. Okay. Actually, that makes sense. There we go. So that's 100%, that'll work. And then we just have to put the door on here, we put the door over this end. So that's a hunter plant. It's going to take 24 furniture to build. 24 furniture is not actually a lot of furniture, so we could potentially barter for that pretty easily. And then I need to get a warehouse for putting stuff in at the beginning here. And a janitor. Warehouse is under logistics. Actually, I'm gonna put it up over on this side. Do something like that, and then we do like a row of crates down each side. This is not a particularly big warehouse, but that should be enough for us to start. Okay, and then we're gonna want a janitor. Probably could have saved the janitor shape from last time. Okay. And then again, we probably want this over here. Workstation. I probably want this to employ, let's say, 10 janitors. How many utilities do I need? I might have made this too big. Okay, that should work. Something like that. I don't have quite enough insulation on that. Okay, don't double door it, just do a door either side. There we go. So yeah, that should be all we really need for the starting off stuff. We currently have it set up in mud. Can I redefine these to not use mud? Swap to wood for the moment. Oh, no, that didn't work. Okay, let's do a control shift. That copy with the... that put the wood in, okay. Then I can come over here, remove, and just replace it. Smart remove. Yoink. And then place you. Like so. Smart remove this one. Oh, I'm going to be doing the same to these as well, right? So, click set to wood. Yeah, I pushed the wrong button. Okay, so you set the wood. That's not going to overwrite the walls because the walls are just going to be mud. So then we do shift copy place. Smart remove to remove the old one, and then copy and paste it back in its place. Forgot to check what type of walls we were using. Doesn't matter for the pasture, doesn't matter for the fishery, but it does matter for these things where we're building walls. And again, yeah, this one's in the wrong material. So I think it's in the wrong material. Yeah. And none of this stuff's really permanent. We might tear it down and move it again because we're uncomfortably sort of close to the good farmland if I end up having to farm. And I think we're going to be doing at least some mushroom farming, so that's probably going to happen. Just how early. Okay, so we've got 3 different food buildings that we're thinking about starting on. I need to get some basic amenities going in when we start. Specifically, we want a little well and a little hearth. I'm not going to make these too big. These are just so our guys can get warm here at the start. So with that, I think we got everything we need planned out. Let's turn planning off and start activating jobs. So we're going to want to turn those amenities on. We're going to need to turn the warehouse on, let's say early, and then the 2 food production buildings, so we have food getting produced pretty quickly. And then with that, let's go ahead and actually, 35 minutes into the video, unpause. Unpause and let our Dondorians get to work. We're getting complaints about loyalty being low, which is vaguely truthful. We got no services yet. We do have some sort of unstockpiled wood here, so I don't need to put down a wood cutting order yet. At least not until we have the warehouse to evaluate how much wood we have. I might actually have enough wood there to get both of these built, so not too worried about being low on wood. So now we got a well, and we got a hearth so their guys can get warm when they're cold. And we now have some jobs making food. Okay. So let's take this down to 0. Let's put some basic settings in here. So we want fish stored here. We want meat stored here. We have grain and rations. We really want both of those stored. Grain, or rations, and where's the grain? There's the grain. We had wood and stone, so we want those stored as well. We have livestock. I think that's everything piled, well, yeah, that's everything piled up here. Grain, ration, stone, wood. And that's everything we're producing at the moment. We have 5 open crates. We're going to want some furniture. We're thinking actually about trading for furniture. So having the ability to trade for it is probably a good plan. So having some warehousing space for that makes sense. And then, is there anything else I want in here while I'm thinking about it? Well, we probably want, let's say we want bread as well. Keep it fairly simple. That leaves us 3 open spots that we can put elsewhere. Did they deliver? I don't think they delivered any of the animals yet. Granted, we have 555. They only need 9 to get that full, so maybe I shouldn't be too concerned about that. The Onyx pasture has enough moisture. Let's go ahead. Our guys aren't going to be particularly good at farming, but we don't... Actually, how close is the forage? Yeah, the grain forage is pretty far away. I'd probably prefer it not all going away, even though our guys are pretty bad at foraging. So let's get a early farm for grain. And 4.5 farmers. Can I make that a little bit bigger? Make it like a full 5. Closer to 5. Yeah. 41 grain. So we'll get them going on that. And let's activate the janitor job. And its surrounding walls. We'll also go ahead... I'll go back into planning mode for this. Let's start thinking about sort of a housing block over here, because our people are going to want a house fairly soon. We've got sort of a rough road coming through here. And if I can, I want to run larger roads this time. And the reason why will make a little bit more sense when we get to putting amenities on the roads. Where's the service I'm looking for? Or thinking about. Of course, that's something you can't answer if you're watching the video, because I haven't even said. I'm trying to remember where the distribution food stalls are. There we go. So I'm thinking we probably want like one of these every end of our housing block. Okay, so let's see. Oops. Oh, I see what's going on. I'm the wrong way around. That would do it. So that services about provides about 53 services in theory, is what the game thinks. Okay, and that's the minimum shape. That's in plan. I'm gonna copy that. That's not necessarily where we're gonna put that one. And then let's check housing-wise. How big? I forgot exactly how big the houses are. So we're probably gonna go for the full, big, long houses. Okay, so that's a little bit of an interesting thought process. We don't need the wall down the middle. I can get technically one more block of spacing efficiency if I don't put that there. But that works, I think, for at least decorative reasons, that works. So we're going to roll with that. It's not going to be quite as space efficient as it could otherwise be. And then the other thing I'm looking for is copy-paste it. So copy area. And then I'm going to need probably more houses per block. Okay, put that house back in there and we'll put the wall where I want it. So we did 6 houses last time. That's basically what this is. 6 housing blocks. Or 6 housing blocks. This with long, well, this is still long houses again. Redoing that again, and then we'll circle that with roads, and that'll probably be our starting housing block. Okay. That'll be our starting housing block. Let's get that. Now that we've got it planned, let's get it under construction as well. I'm going to leave the food stall uncompleted. Although I've got everything I need for the food stall. Let's activate it as well. We'll leave the roads undone. And then we'll get that done. Get that stuff built. That's probably where we'll put the part break in, once that's done. Basic janitors to maintain everything. And basically our sort of initial food production. There's maybe a debate whether or not we have enough food in our initial food production. Oh, and let's put this to auto so you can grab as many workers as you need to get all the stuff loaded into the warehouse. Hopefully before it spoils. Am I out of wood? Yes, I am out of wood. That's the problem with building out of wood, is you need wood. A lot of people that are rapid builders in this game might technically build out of the slower to build mud brick. But wood is a little faster to build with. It just obviously requires wood up front to build it. So go collect some wood. The generator did complete, and only thinks it needs 2 workers for the moment, so that's good to see. So once we have everyone housed, and this is technically housing enough for 60. Right, we've only got 36 people in here. We should have a much happier population. Based on our spies, they want a fulfillment of 0.24%. We're providing about 8% right now. Well, apparently they're getting no happiness from food servings. There's not much food stored. Oh yeah, we're not making enough. Well, that makes sense because the pasture isn't really producing yet, right? Yeah, I probably need more food production. It's not a major concern because we've got the rations at the start of the game, but we'll need to get more food production going pretty quickly. Each one of our fishermen, in theory, feeds about 3 people. So we've got food production of the fishery of 18. So we'll probably want to get some more fisheries going. Okay, and we've got everyone just about housed. So we've actually got 24 spare housing, although we need to make more food before we do that. The pasture's got its 9 animals in it. None of them are adults, so they don't make much food yet. And we got a grain farm, which makes grain. Both of those are probably industries at some point we will expand. The grain we're going to probably turn into bread, and the bread we're going to turn into rations for our army. Apparently I don't have enough space to store all that. So I think we up all those storages. For the stuff that hasn't been taken out of the throne. Yeah, I think the next thing to do otherwise is a bigger fishery, or another fishery. Let this episode go a little bit longer, and I'll get the second fishery going. Because again, I think our current one with 6 feeds about 3 people per worker, and we got 6 workers here, so it's about 18 workers. We want employ like another 6 workers in fishing. Yeah, this is maybe not the best of territory for fishery. In hindsight, it'll work, but it's not a great spot for fish. Okay, so that's, in theory, enough for 5 fishermen. This is pretty close to a warehouse, so we probably don't need a particularly large storage. Okay, we got the wood for that, so let's get that built. Again, that won't necessarily be quite enough to feed everyone. We should still probably be a little bit short with that, but that'll be a lot closer, and a little bit closer for the onyx pastures to provide. Because yeah, I think this is the total output of the onyx pasture right now, because no one's adult. Onyxes are also mostly for their fiber. Again, I'm not too worried about food availability, because we can also do, and this is what we will sort of do in the short run. We can mark some local wildlife for hunting. We didn't do this last time. Oh, that's already a cadaver. Okay, let's go ahead and, can I pick that up? No. We can effectively hunt some of the local wildlife as well. There's a bunch of sort of native cows over here we can pick clean, for example. Yeah, and you can see our people are much happier now that they've moved in and starting to take advantage of the newly built amenities. Food stall is going up, wells going up, health is going up. If they want to, they can skinny dip in the river. All of that's helping. Access to food's going up, access to housing's going up. Big improvements all around. About death care. Before we have anyone dying, let's set up a small grave. Or in this case, I'm actually going to set up a couple small graves, because that's a pretty small one. At some point soon, we probably will get graveyards, because our people do... unlike the Mivians that we had last time, the Dondorians actually appreciate having graveyards to be buried in. Those aren't particularly big graveyards, but they should work for what we need. We got 13 odd jobbers. What is... Let's see how the price looks when we're thinking about our neighbors, as far as potentially buying. We do have 3 neighbors. We got lots of neighbors we can negotiate with. Let's see what their opinion is of giving us... How much furniture did I need? 20 for furniture. Can I get you... Let's say you. Will you give me... trade eventually, but first. 24, that's me offering. Demand. I'd like to buy... Let's go a little high. I'm going to say 30 furniture just to make sure we have enough. And then I barter... So we give you a bunch of money, which we have. We actually have some money. And some meat. Okay. Oops. I just broke the deal. Actually, let's see... Well, actually, let's start off... This meat, or this, those animals are gonna go off if I keep them. We want... I'm actually gonna lower... Nah, we'll go 30. We'll still go with the 30. Barter. I think every time we hit barter, it gives us slightly different... Or if I take something off and I hit barter, that's something different on. Yeah. Okay. So, trading away the livestock I don't really need, and a chunk of money to get 30 furniture. We're going to use that 30 furniture to build up the hunter so we can get more meat coming in. And it sounds like a plan. Except... Pop into the map, and of course that means we want to activate the hunter. Yeah, we gotta wait for the furniture to arrive, but we also need to basically assemble everything else, right? So we're not in a super rush for that furniture to arrive. And we can say the livestock has already gone out. Oh, on the food stalls, don't carry vegetables, fruit, or eggs yet. We might turn the rations, or the rations are off. Turn bread off as well. It's not a preferred food of our race. Do not put it in the food stalls. You can go to the warehouse for that. Yeah, the furniture has arrived, so we just need enough people here to assemble the hunter. And we'll actually, I'll start letting people in. So let's set the auto to 50. Which gives us a mirror, the ability to set up export-import depots, which we may, in fact, want to be doing fairly soon, although I think we want to build a new warehouse before we start contemplating some exports. For example, I set up the grain farm because we wanted a source of grain, so we don't lose all our grain. At the moment, I don't need the grain, so we're going to export the grain. In fact, we've just been given a glorious gift that pisses them off if I say no to it, of grain. So we got more grain. But we're going to export our grain, so we're going to try to set up trade deals and export all the grain. We set up the onyx pasture. That's going to generate... Oh, and there's some booze. We'll probably contemplate trying to export the booze as well. That's going to generate fiber. Early on, we don't necessarily need that fiber until we're ready to start making clothing, so we'll probably look into exporting the fiber as well. And there's the hunter, which is why we took more people in, so we'd have enough people to not be job negative once that was done. And then that's set to harvesting meat. We do already have... Oh no, it's just an unlucky day, specifically. I think 15 is the limit before it starts getting penalized by number of employees. But yeah, so that's quite productive from a meat production standpoint. This is a good climate for it, although we're currently getting hit with a bad, unlucky day. And yeah, that more than those 15 workers are feeding 45 workers with the food. So everyone's fed. We got enough food production. We got some basic houses set up. We've actually got vacancies for another 10 people. We're going to want to build more warehouses. We're going to sort of continue expanding up into the northeast towards the industrial zones up here for the mining. So we've got iron and coal. And one place where we probably actually want to move towards as well is our Dondorians don't have a problem with living in the mountain. So we'll start to carve into the mountain. Just don't... One thing I recommend when doing the Dondorians is don't start in the mountain. Carving the mountain is slow, and you really want to get them their basic needs before you're worried about digging into the mountain. But at this point, we're at the point where we've got the basic needs done. We're basically going to let them build the roads probably next and build up another warehouse so that we can actually store more things. Because you can see on a lot of the things, we're full on meat, we're full on that, we're full on this. And we barely even really started making stuff. Right, so we want to get that fixed. But yeah, I hope you've been enjoying. If you're watching on YouTube, we'll have another part up tomorrow. We're going to record another 3 parts tonight. If you're watching on Twitch, feel free to hang around. I'm going to take a short break so I can get up, stretch the legs, sip some tea, and then we will be back to record the next part. So until the next part, I'm going to wish you all the best of luck and a good time. Catch you all in the next part and or next stream. And bye for now.